Well, none of them can hide from the truth, yeah. Children have to go back to the roots, yeah. None of them can hide from the truth, yeah. Children have to go back to the roots. I'm telling you now, the truth, the truth. Telling you, yeah, the truth, the truth. You have to go back to the roots, the roots. Go to the roots, to the roots. Yeah, man, you know, this is Benjamin out of the Smiling Coast, West Africa, Gambia, representing for the one and only Abu, the big man you don't know, the Soninke warrior, the man that brings the truth, Soninke warrior, the sign of enlightenment, the Soninke warrior, the righteous and the true African. Abu, reveal the truth to them, you know, no matter how them try to run from it, because none of them can hide from the truth, yeah. Yes, we have to dig back the roots, yeah. Fire!
Subscribe now.
I remember the days, all those years ago that never fade away. And I remember your face when you hit the ground. I can recall the time and place on a midnight walk through the old streets, trying to turn back the clock to the days of old, back to the days when all the things we knew were made of gold. As the world moves on, time sings a song. In the old neighborhood, as the clock strikes one, the memory lives just as it stood, like a quiet dream. The shadows of that time are cast beneath the streetlight beam. As the world moves on, time sings a song.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Afridamus Report. I'm your host, Afridamus. Please make sure you hit the like if you're just coming in, and feel free to share the video so that this stream, so a whole bunch of people can come and get some real information from the Afridamus Report. So today, just as you're seeing, the title says Interview Review. So this interview, what makes it stand out, like, because I'm not going by the, Wakanda channels, how people sensationalize things. There's a saying. They said, if you want to get the honest truth out of a black person or African, put them in front of a white man. There is something about the white man where when they sit in front of the African and ask them question, the truth comes out. So this is a opportunity. This conversation that actually was a Q&A with Tucker Carlson, formerly in Fox. Now he's independent. He's gone independent. So this gathering took place, I believe, is in the UAE, in the Arab country. And as you guys know, the Africans always seem to pride themselves to be invited to maybe white gathering, Arab gathering, or Chinese gathering, right? So that's where, they were. They said this is gathering of presidents. So it's different presidents. So the type of conversation and truth that you would never get from these presidents, that's what we are about to break down here. So as you know, majority pretty much, like there's no country that, as far as I'm aware of, that is under official colonization in Africa. The first black African country became quote unquote independent in 1958, which is Ghana. And then others followed through. So that's been a little over 60 years now. And many other places, Singapore, South Korea, many places used to be under, colonialism. So, we believe they are sovereign. But today, Let's look at African nations. For the most part, can they be called sovereign nations? Can African nations, majority, can they stand on their own without having outside entity that is holding them? Because they said, okay, we don't want the white people to dictate to us. Um, so that would mean, it's like, for example, if you're like a child in your father's house, for example, here in the United States, if you're 15 or whatsoever, you want to emancipate, you can go to the courthouse, get court documents, but your parent can be like, okay, fine, you are emancipated, but you can't leave under my roof. You cannot depend on me. So I'm guessing the African quote unquote independence of these nations, that's what happened. They want to be away from the white man's control, but at the same time depend on the white man. Then the countries, the people start crying foul. How dare the white man dictating to me? No, because you are still reliant on the white man. But then they're like, okay, let's pivot because we're not having, good deals from the white man. Now there is another star, which is China. And, you will see in this conversation, because here's how you would know that you have been assigned, like you are under someone, because if they are asking you only about that person, mind you, there is 54 countries in Africa, 54, right? You would never see an interview where they would be like, okay, this country is reliant on this country in Africa. How is the trade coming? I mean, to be frank, it's been over 60 years. You should be able to discuss that, be able to get, African nations, should be able to attract uh, real investments from one another. But in this day and age, majority, as you guys know, they say, okay, the West didn't treat Africans well, so they are now with China. So that's the discussion that they had, the Q&A. So um, I'm going to play that here, and we will take the time and listen to the responses that these various presidents would give. Uh, it's the president of Botswana, Sierra Leone, and Zimbabwe. So we want to see how far Zimbabwe has come since independence. I mean, their president is an old guy, Manangagwa. He's the one that replaced uh, Robert Mugabe. So it's very important, for one to understand, to see where the mindset of your leader is, leaders of these countries. That would help you understand why things are the way they are and how you're moving into the 21st century. So I find this interview very interesting, and I've learned quite a bit, especially about like Botswana, because I've heard many people online, the Pan-Africanists, because they like to tweak things. People like to hear sensationalized uh, things, but over here, we're going to get the real. So I don't want to keep you waiting. We would go straight into the interview and we would all hear it together. And just bear with me. I might stop every now and again and give commentary on certain things that would be, answers that are given, and, throw my own thoughts on it. So just bear with me. Uh, this is for fair use, for entertainment purposes. Let me bring the interview up. And this is with Tucker Carlson. And he's going to be asking the questions here. So here we go.
Gentlemen, thank you for doing this. It's awfully nice of you to do this. I'd just like to go right down the line. And first to you, President Nagawa, again, thanks. In as clear terms as you can, I wonder if you would contrast your experience.
So he's asking first the president of Zimbabwe. I mean, he said Nangagwa, but his name is Manangagwa. I know it's a mouthful of words. It's hard to pronounce it, but he's about to ask Manangagwa. So let's pay attention and listen if Manangagwa is going to, answer the question, properly. Here we go.
With China versus the Western powers, do you think that Zimbabwe and other African countries, to be totally blunt, get a better deal from Chinese investment than they have with Western powers over the past 150 years?
Well, my view is that initially, as we became independent, we had most of our development thrust was from the West. But as we evolved, we have also benefited from investment and cooperation from countries like China.
But the basic structure.
So you guys notice Mnangagwa, the president of Zimbabwe, is being asked about, are they getting a better deal, with China or the West? He did not answer the question. He didn't answer the question. He was saying, oh yeah, before we dealt with the West, but now we with China. But that's not the question. It's a comparison here. Are you getting a better deal dealing with the West or China? That's what the question is. So I don't know if he's pretending not to know, but I think for people, especially who say pro-Africa, it is important to know how the leaders are answering these questions. He did not answer the question. So let's try again if he's going to.
Sure seems the same. Foreign powers extract mineral wealth from various African countries, but do you think that the arrangement that Zimbabwe and other countries currently have with China is better or worse for Zimbabwe than it was under, say, the Brits?
I think the premises upon which you construct your question, I don't think is perfect.
Here we go. So this is the problem. Always acting all suspicious and being political. They are asking you about the better deal or not. Why isn't he answering the question? Because the premise of the question, I think, is very important for Africans to know. He's asking, okay, he said, it looks like the deal you have with China is similar to the same deal. The conditions are still the same, just like you had with the West, meaning you are just sending raw materials like resources. It's not refined. So they are getting the raw materials from you and then add value to it, which they in return will probably sell back to Africa and other places. So the situation has not changed. So he's trying to know, is China paying you more money or not? So I think he should be able to answer that question so that people know, okay, yeah, you switch, so this is what you are getting from China, so that people can learn what it is. He should say it with his chest to show people that nah, either the deal is good or not, or whatever it is, and let us know. But he's not answering the question. He's saying the question is not perfect. There is no perfect question, sir.
Not surprised.
Yes, Zimbabwe is a sovereign state.
Yes.
You understand? And we move on the basis that gives us the best results of our resources. Whether it is relation with the West or the East, what is primarily important is what we ourselves as Zimbabweans are satisfied with. We don't need to please the West or please the East. We please ourselves.
Good. That seems like a good model for every sovereign country. President Bio, thank you for this. Do you think that there is a substantial difference? I'm just trying to understand from a Western perspective how the East does business in Africa versus how the West does. And it may be too sensitive a topic really even to talk about out loud, but to the extent you have a view you can share, would you?
I'm sure relations cannot be measured country by country.
Yes.
Relations depend on the historical background of countries between one country and another.
Yes.
That's the basis on which relations grow and are nurtured. For us in Zimbabwe, yes, we are a former British colony, but we are very happy with the relations that have now developed with, say, countries like China and so on.
Yes.
Despite being a former British colony.
I think this maybe one of these topics is too difficult to talk.
So, have you guys noticed here? So Mnangagwa did all that dancing around, all that tap dancing, when he could have just answered the question from the get-go. So in many words, because he's like, okay, we are a British, we were colonized by the British, but we are happy, with our relationship with China. What does that even mean? That's what the man was asking you, from the beginning, from the get-go. Like, are you getting a better deal or not? So guys, you have to look at this, right? This, because Mnangagwa is an old guy, he was alive when Zimbabwe was under white rule. So there is still a little bit of that, be careful not to, upset the white man, so it feels like, you got to pull teeth to get the answer out of him. So this is not just some internet talk. You're hearing it straight from the horse's mouth. So let us hear more. Here we go. There's a guy saying, why does that concern the US? Sir, this guy is not here speaking on behalf of the US. This is how nations interact. That's the problem. Like most Africans do not understand how business works. They are all up in their feelings. They think, they can use emotions to make things happen. No. I mean, it's perfectly all right for the president of Zimbabwe, Mnangagwa, to say, hey, we partnered with China because we are getting way better deal than China. It doesn't mean just because one colonized you, you can't do business with them. You can still find, good business relationship with them. Like Singapore was, colonized, and they do business with their former colony. The British colonized America, and they still do business. So at the end of the day, even colonization is all about business relationship. That's what it comes down to. Whoever offers you the best deal, that's who you go with. It's not about, oh, my feelings are hurt, So I cannot do business. Get out of your feelings and look for the best deal. That's what it all comes down to.
Talk about in public. So let me just ask you, President Bio, about one of the strengths of your country and the continent, which is its birth rate, which so far surpasses that of any other region in the world, and that seems like a strength. How has your country, Sierra Leone, but also many other countries in Africa, been able to maintain a birth rate at replacement when Europe, the US, Canada, lots of other parts of the world have not been able to?
Thank you very much. I think we are hard workers, and we work both in the day and at night. And
yeah. So now he's asking the president of Sierra Leone, Mother Bio, so he's asking him, because there is, as you guys know, Africa has the youngest population, tons and tons of kids. Some people are produced, like the other day I saw like a guy in the Gambian space. I mean, this guy have like 30 children, 30 kids, right? So now the question becomes, it's not only about having those kids, can they compete in today's world? What type of education are they receiving? What type of opportunities are out there? It's not just only about producing the kids. You could be producing lots of poverty. So that's what the question is about. Like, okay, you guys got a bunch of kids. So, how is that working? Because Europe, America, even China, they are aging out. They are saying that even China, right, because of their one-child policy, this is affected China. So in the next even 30, 40 years, majority of Chinese are going to be super old. They are not replacing their population, but Africa people are just producing. So that would be the opportunity for Africa to make these young people viable to compete. So that's what the president is like. Yeah, we're busy day and night. We know, we can tell. So here we go.
That is such great advice.
It is essential to have young people and to keep the birth rate at the right level so that there is sustainability in development. What we do today, or as leaders, we provide the enabling environment, provide them with the tools, the young people to navigate the world, which is extremely tough, complicated, and evolving and changing all the time. So it is our responsibility to bear that in mind. We have to plan ahead of, be ahead of the curve to be able to replace accordingly so that we don't have a gap.
Well laid out. You guys notice the difference between the Zimbabwe president and the Sierra Leone president? The Sierra Leone president answered the question he's been asked. Very well spoken, laid it out. That's all. I'm just pointing out the difference here. He's answering the question directly. He's like, yeah, we got young population, and he's telling us what they are doing, for the young people, how they can compete in the world. He's not just, tap dancing around it. He's answering the question directly. I just wanted to point that out. So that's why these old politicians from the colonial era, you got to pay attention. Like, you can't continue to let them lead the people, because these people are stuck in the past. They're not looking to the future. For example, like Cameroon has a president who's, the guy is like almost 300 years old. But see, Mother Bio is not from the colonial era. his response is different from Manangagwa. Manangagwa is using, the black and mild thing on his hair. Don't let that fool you. The guy is like 90 million years old. That's why he's still talking that colonial stuff. So here we go.
Our development process. So we have been busy producing as much as we can, a lot of good people, and we are investing in their education so that they are fit for purpose for a world that is becoming digital and, of course, going extremely to the edge of technological advancement.
If I could just ask you a quick follow-up to you, Mr. President, do you keep track precisely of how many of your young, educated citizens leave and how many stay? Are you thinking hard about how to retain the smartest, most energetic people?
Definitely. In fact, what my administration did was to make sure that we provide basic primary and secondary education free of charge to the citizens. Every child born in Sierra Leone can go to school and finish high school without paying a penny. We don't just provide tuition.
I mean, that's all fine and dandy, but what type of education are they receiving? Comment from Facebook saying, do your research properly. Africa is the future. They are one of the only continent with growth. The continent is booming. Sir, maybe you're not paying attention to what's been said here. Everyone clearly heard that. Yes, Sierra Leone's having a bunch of babies, just like other African countries. So yes, if you're paying attention, we've already established that. But thank you for your comment anyways. So yes, the education, the free education, quote unquote, good. All children should have access to the education. But what type of education are they getting? That's also very important. You see, are they being put in classes to just draw insects, labeling insects? Are they developing skills? Because, to be frank, most of these countries in Africa right now, it should be, the young people, the mindset need to change. They should teach, those who are smart enough to enter the the new technology era that we are in. You support those to go to that, because not everyone is going to be, a great at maths and science. Those who are good with their hands, you push those people in that direction, because no nation can develop without, skills. You need people to your own people to develop the place. So they should encourage skilled labor. That's just a fact. It's not just to have a bunch of babies and then send those babies through the desert and the Mediterranean Sea or to foreign countries to go serve, other nations. That's not a good plan, because when you provide the wrong type of education, that's what would happen. The cycle would continue.
We also make sure that we provide other essentials to make it possible so that nobody has excuse not to go to school, because in the 21st century, without education, definitely you can make it. And we do not just want to make it at the personal level, family level. We want to grow as a nation. We want to be useful citizens of West Africa, the community that I chair today. But we also want to be a useful citizens, global useful citizens that can contribute to the world. So we are taking stock of that, and we are educating them, equipping them. In fact, I call education as an equipment.
Oh, sorry, I forgot to mention, the Arabs also, the other stepdaddy of Africa. But you guys saw they had to show the stepdaddy too. So just wanted to say that. Let's continue.
In navigational equipment in a world that is becoming very, very complicated and complex.
Thank you. President Boko, as you look at young people in Botswana who are educated and energetic, what's your pitch to them? What's your argument to them to stay in Botswana, not go to South Africa, Europe, the United States?
Young people are generally innovative. They are entrepreneurial. They now have become digital natives, and that presents immense opportunities to them. These opportunities mean they can pretty much operate wherever they are, and they...
Man, I can't help but notice whoever cut his hair, man, that barber is on point. You guys see how straight that line is? So those of you FBAs talking about, you know, the FBA hairline, now you're seeing this is not one of those turkeys, you know, going to Turkey, the country, to get your hairline fixed. We know the secret. This is straight from Africa. But this is the president of Botswana. So you guys, as you know, like Botswana, you know, at one point they were doing really good, really well, right? In the diamond industry. So they are one of the few countries that they were not, because Sierra Leone has diamond too, but they only export the raw diamond. Botswana started refining it and then selling, you know, the after product, which, you know, where the money is. But the diamond industry is beginning to go down because they have literally perfected, you know, lab created diamonds. So the lab created diamond is challenging the natural diamond from African nations, and even Canada has tons of diamonds, right? But they're not mining it as they're doing in Africa, because, you know, like white people, they're like, man, we got to look to the future. Let's get stuff from out of Africa. But with lab diamonds circulating in the market, you know, that's affected Botswana's economy. So their president, even right now, they are selling citizenships. If you, I believe if you can come up with 70,000 US dollars, you can buy Botswana citizenship, you know, become a citizen, you know, and invest in that country. So they are diversifying. So African nations have to learn to diversify. Even Saudi Arabia, they are diversifying away from their oil, you know, like they are taking a hit. So, but let's hear him speak as well.
Must, as a matter of course, remain within Botswana so that they can then spread their reach and influence to every part from Botswana. And so the opportunities that there are in Botswana, the training, the education, the acquisition of skills, the support, the environment that nurtures them and feeds and fuels their verve and vitality is what Botswana offers and what will power Africa. Africa generally is a very young continent with a median age of 19.3. Botswana's median age is 25. And so with such a population, Africa is poised to rule the world.
So what are you?
Well, I mean, that's all fine and dandy, you know, to say that, but how is Africa going to rule the world? You cannot rule the world if you are not dictating things, you know. You have to have certain things in place to be able to do that, you see. I mean, sure, the Western world, other places, you know, people are aging out, but all the money, everything that it takes to control the world, the control that's in place, you're going to need just more than to say, oh, we got young people, but what can these young people do? What's their brain power? Yeah, I mean, I think what the president said here, this one is not really making much sense. I think he just said it just for the hell of it, you know. But anyways, I mean, he's entitled to believe that. And I like that he's optimistic. So let's continue.
Your plans for the world once you rule it?
To make it fairer, to make it more equitable, to ensure that
Here we go with that black talk again. Make it fairer. Like, what does that even mean? I hear people say equitable, fair. There is no real, that's not even the real world. Because how do you decide what is equal? You know, how do you even decide that? So instead of being in that, so he's talking all that communist talk, victimhood. Those are victimhood terms, making it fairer, equitable. I mean, that's not even real. You got to get your weight up. When you get your weight up, then you wouldn't have to worry about all that stuff. You'll be doing your own thing. So this here sounds more like juvenile way of thinking. But I mean, I could be wrong. If you guys think I'm wrong, eventually I'll open up the line and you can join in and give your thoughts. But I think it's just fantasy at this point.
intellectual property is internalized in every part of the African continent, that innovation serves humanity, not just a predatory elite, and that everybody can partake equitably and benefit from the fruits of the economy and the vast opportunities that are available in the world.
Well, I look forward to being treated fairly under your rule. Thank you, President Nagawa. I wonder what lessons you've been in the government of Zimbabwe for decades in various roles, including through a very turbulent period where your predecessor famously kicked out the whites, and then the economy tanked, and now it's rising again. I wonder if you would summarize the lessons that your country has learned from that experience.
I'm not so sure what you have in mind.
See, Mnangagwa, why does he act all suspicious? Why is he acting all suspicious instead of answering the question? Sir, just answer the question. They're asking him about, you know, how like Zimbabwe, they kicked out the white people and took the land, gave it to the blacks there. I mean, the blacks were terrible farmers, and obviously Zimbabwe went down. But they are, you know, beginning to come back. So that's a good thing, you know. But they're asking him the question. For example, guys, I'm just being real. Like, I'm not doing the fantasy thing, especially for him, like being somebody from that era. I want to hear like a honest, straight to the point answer. Like, sir, tell us why. How did you guys come up, you know, with the idea that, okay, we're gonna take the land from the white people. We're gonna, you know, even though, you know, even the ones who were born and raised in Zimbabwe, you know, like, I want to know, and I'm sure everyone wants to know. It's nothing suspicious or to say, oh, I don't know what you have in mind. Just answer the question. Okay? I'm telling you guys, you know, these old guys, they act way too suspicious because they are worried that, you know, white daddy is listening. So here we go.
But let me say, our economy has faced challenges. I'm sure you're aware.
Yes.
Zimbabwe has been under sanctions for decades as a result of us claiming our land from the British and making ourselves independent. We seized the land and gave it to our people. So sanctions were imposed on us. But in spite of all that constraint we have developed, and we are happy that we have developed on our own, and we feel very independent.
Well, some of the land was seized from people who were born there. So I wonder if there's a lesson about targeting people on the basis of their skin color. Do you think?
Don't hear you?
Well, people had their land seized in Zimbabwe who were born in Zimbabwe, and they were targeted on the basis of their race. And I wonder if you think that's good or bad.
No. Land did not belong to a race. It
Right,
belonged to
that's right.
Zimbabweans.
Okay, Mnangagwa, the president, answered that correctly. See, Tucker wanted to. He's making this about a race thing, right? I mean, let's just be honest here. Like, I get it. You know, like they want to talk about a nationhood. Yes, there were white people who were born and raised there, but the lands that they were on, how did they acquire those lands? You have to remember the British came there. They found people in Zimbabwe on those lands, and they waged wars on those people and took the land. So, yeah, just because you go to a place, you wage war on the people, you conquer them and take the land, but they still existing, that doesn't mean all of a sudden, they lose the right to the land. That's not realistic.
So when the colonialists took land from us, time came when we asserted ourselves, take back our land. And those who wanted to have land at the same basis as the African people of Zimbabwe remained. But those who felt the superior left.
Okay.
All right. So I know Tucker is not happy with that answer, but I mean, yeah, I get it. When they took the land, they got sanctioned, the economy tanked whatsoever. But, like, how can anybody reasonably say, okay, fine, like there were people, like you can literally see this. There were people who, their grandfathers, Zimbabweans, their grandfathers, like great-grandfather, they can see like, okay, this land was our land. They are first generation. They were on the land. And the British, let's not forget, when the British came there, they took those lands through force with guns and named the place Rhodesia. So, I mean, how do you expect to dispossess someone of their land, in their original home and not think that you're not going to give it back? Yes, it became modern, but no, that's not going to work. Did you guys know even in Kenya at one point, there were British who, in the highlands of Kenya, they took land from the people there. That's what the Mau Mau that you hear about, those wars, that's what that was all about, So, yes, the farmers in Zimbabwe, they were good, they made the economy good, but the people who over generation were dispossessed of that land, they were not happy. In fact, during their war of independence that Robert Mugabe led, that was the promise that was given to those people that they are fighting to get back their land. I mean, it's a tough one, like, for you to stand there and somebody's like, hey, man, that's you're watching your grandfather's land or your great-grandfather's land taken from you, and this was taken through force. I mean, it would be hard for people to stomach that. So yes, Zimbabwe, Zimbabwe, that's what happened there. So Mnangagwa was was ditching all the other questions, but this one he answered it straight because he has great knowledge on this one. So yeah, that's what happened in Zimbabwe for sure. So I mean, I'm glad their economy is coming back. Now they can do things fairly. Whoever wants land, they can buy it, you know. So it would be on a fair footing, not somebody coming with their army and taking your land. And that's what the British did.
Mr. Bio, it does seem like Mr. President, that the model of government around the world seems to be changing, and people seem to have lost confidence in democracy, at least in the West. People aren't quite as keen to promote democracy. Do you notice this? Do you think democracy is in retreat around the world?
I think the world is in transition.
Yes.
And normally that comes along with instability. I normally refer to it as we are in a state of flux.
Yes.
We have been told to go democratic, and those who are leading the way or who have been teaching us to be democratic are no longer committed to that method of governance. So we are left to choose, but I still believe that democracy is the best method of governance, choosing who leads, especially a liberal democracy with all the freedoms that go with it, so that human rights and the and other liberties are observed and maintained. We remain committed to democracy.
Whoa. So you guys are seeing the question they're asking, because you guys are seeing there's a lot of changes happening. It was the Westerners that, quote unquote, brought democracy to these nations, you know, in Africa. But now the West is no longer committed to democracy. They are moving away from it. So they asked the president, he's saying, okay, you know, is still the best model, but shouldn't this be the time for, you know, African nations to actually try to come up with a new system? Because when they say the democracy works, it depends on who you ask. Go to Cameroon and ask those people about if democracy is working over there. Go to Uganda, Tanzania, you know, all these, you know, different countries. Is the democracy that, quote unquote, is it working? You know, are the people, you know, the people that are in charge in most of these countries, did they force themselves on people, or people actually chose them? You know, I think that's very important, because they said democracy brings peace and freedom. But in these countries, let's just be real. Like, do you think, I mean, I don't know if you've been following what's happening in some of these countries. You know, there's no freedom. You can't criticize what is happening. You think you can go criticize Museveni? I mean, they just had the election. Museveni crushed the people. You go to Tanzania, the lady there, the people said they didn't want her. They came out in droves. In droves. You know, she locked up the opponent. The people boycott the election, and she came out, declared herself as winning, you know, 98%. How do you win 98% and, quote unquote, the people are in the streets willing to die? So I think it's high time, you know, for Africans to really, you know, rethink this whole thing. I mean, it's a new era. Just like he said, the people who even brought the democracy are moving away from it. So this should be taken whereby it's not because the democracy was imposed. So Africans can sit down and people, you know, come up with, you know, African solutions and African system. you know, but you can't say, oh yeah, even though they are moving away, we're gonna hold on to it. We're gonna hold on to it. What does that even mean? You see? So just wanted to throw that in.
Irrespective of the fact that there are now reversers, even in Africa, around the world. In fact, these days, when you listen to world news and other things, you hardly hear about democracy. You're very right. But we are committed to it because it is the best form until we can provide an alternative that can really sit well with us in society. We remain committed to democracy.
Space and climb. China only lifted itself out of abject poverty over the last 40 years. We've been free from colonialism now in Botswana for almost 60 years. We have had an affinity with the West because of the relationship, the special relationship that we've had with them. And China has only come in, and we relate with China on terms that we define ourselves. We look at what it is that China offers, what it is that we need, and we sit and good a deal as we are able to negotiate in a situation where all the parties come to the table and present their offerings. So I think the relations are shaped largely by what the interests of these African countries, ourselves included, are.
Interesting.
You know, guys, just like our movement mentioned, and I was going to even say that 54 countries and our movement, you're right. No coordination, no networking amongst each other. Do you guys know, like, for most of these countries to even network, they either have to meet in meetings like this, like, you know, that's put up by either Arabs, you know, Chinese or Westerners. So clearly you can hear even like the from the president of Sierra Leone, Madabio, and AB, you're correct. What he's emphasizing is he's a follower. He's a complete follower, you know. But you know, I think, you know, these, you know, leaders need, if they are truly genuine, you know, that is, if they're genuine, if they truly want, you know, the progress of Africa, they should start especially looking at, you know, democracy, you know, objectively, not only based on, you know, their own self-centered interests. You know, unfortunately, you know, in Africa, that's the biggest problem. Because if you look at it, someone like Mnangagwa, he's like a king. In Zimbabwe, you know, and I bet before he's not just going to leave, he will probably like hand it, he would hand it to somebody else. He would want to be, it's not the people who are going to decide, he would want to be the one to hand it over, you know. So they have to study democracy properly and decide if that's working or not, and come up with a different system that works. Yeah, but someone is like, oh yeah, some of them are networking. Yeah, but you know, we've all heard about ECOWAS, you know, AU, you know, none of those organizations are pushing in agendas that benefit Africans. Even to bring peace in the Eastern Congo, between the Eastern Congo and Rwanda, they had to come all the way to come and meet, you know, Daddy Trump, Daddy Trump had to be the one to say, hey, you guys need to stop this. You know, you got, SADC. The SADC, you know, they are pretty much useless, just like ECOWAS, right? You look at like Nigeria, just a couple days ago, the U.S. military, some U.S. troops landed there. So there has to be always a white referee has to be there to monitor what's happening. So I know most people are not gonna like hearing that, but I'm just giving you, you know, the honest truth, the observation that I'm seeing. So here we go.
President Nagawa, what did you think of what happened in Venezuela last month?
Venezuela is very far away from Zimbabwe.
Yes, it is. yes, sir.
Manangagwa, that doesn't mean the planes cannot fly to Zimbabwe and pick you up. Okay? That doesn't mean that. So that's what I'm saying, like the delusion to feel like you're far away. No, the world is not, places are not that far anymore. Like if they want to pick Manangagwa, like if Trump gives the go to pick him, doesn't he know they have American bases right there in Africa, close by where he is, and he would be picked up? So it's not far, buddy.
But I wonder, I still wonder as a head of state, a longtime head of state, what you thought of that. I mean, you must pay attention to what happens to other heads of state.
Yeah, but I don't know what we really read in Zimbabwe actually happens in Venezuela, but from what we read, we are interested to know why it is happening.
Guys, this is the president of a whole country, literally. That's his response. So he doesn't know what's going on in Venezuela. Imagine you are the president of the whole country, and here is like the most powerful country in the world. They just picked up a president of a whole country, Venezuela, who's got, you know, stronger army than you. If you are the leader, if you're the leader of a country somewhere, don't you think you would want to research that and know? So that means Manangagwa just told us that he is clueless. And I'm telling you, right, some of these people, leaders, they only care about their little circle. This is why the countries is hard for most African countries to compete. They are not competing with the rest of the world. You know, as long as they have their local thing going, you know, the first thing is, oh, Zimbabwe is far away. Doesn't he know they have American troops around? No place is far away. They can pick him up. And then he's letting us all know he doesn't know. He has no clue about what's happening in Venezuela, what happened to Maduro. The whole world knows this. But let's hear how the other two are going to respond.
But President B, what did you think?
I was stunned, and I'm still stunned. It was so surreal that I still have to understand whether the world order, the rules-based society, is still existing, and if not, what becomes of the world? That's why I earlier described the state as we are in a state of flux, because
see, Madabio, the president of Sierra Leone, he is realistic. Okay, that's why he knows what is real and what isn't. He is realistic because, you know, during the Sierra Leonean civil war, Madabio have seen how, you know, when some rebels kidnapped some British citizens, right? They sent a few British intelligence special forces who came all the way into Sierra Leone and took out a bunch of those rebels, the ones that were holding them. You can go find this documentary on YouTube right here. You will see it. No, like they couldn't stop them. They went and rescued those British citizens and they took out those rebels. So he knows, like, okay, if they want to pick any of us up, the United States can do that. Yes. So let's continue.
Everything that we have understood as the basis for international order is fragmenting or being destroyed right in our face.
And I'm sorry, it felt like an unfair question, but that's exactly more to the point. What I'm asking is this a sign of a changing order? And I will end with you, President Boko. What was your response to it?
Well, I think we are seeing a world where rules seem to matter very little, and they matter only depending on who is benefiting from them and who is wielding the stick at any given point in time. We know that public international law respects territorial integrity, it respects the sovereignty of nations, and it also requires that the people of every nation state must exercise their self-determination. They must determine what happens within their borders. And to have external powers intrude and remove any head of state, regardless of what the circumstances are, I think it's something that is utterly shocking, and it is an affront to a rule-based international order. I think it must be described in starkly those terms and nothing pretentious.
You notice none of them, they're afraid to mention Trump and say those things. Like, to me, imagine if, yeah, we get what he's saying. This is just all, empty talk, things. This makes no sense, sir. He already, like, you are sitting on a platform, they were asking you about outside powers. Those are who you rely on. So what makes you think, outside power cannot come and use their power on you? I think that's pretty delusional, to think that. So just because you say those things, you think that's going to stop Trump or whoever? That's not going to stop them. And this so-called international law only applies to weaker countries. This doesn't apply to the United States, for your information, or Russia.
Gentlemen, thank you for doing this and for your patience with my questions. And
Did you guys see the Chinese daddy? They made sure they are there to monitor what these leaders are going to be saying.
I really appreciate it very much. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, great conversation, great conversation. So I'm gonna put the link in the chat for a little bit of conversation. Those of you that want to contribute to what you've seen and heard, feel free to hit the link and join the conversation. All opinions are allowed. It's not about agreeing with me or not. I want to hear your point of view. What's your take on what you just heard? Is this proving that Africa, especially with these leaders, seeing the interview here, the answers, what clicked in your head about this? Duale said, what do you want them to say? They are powerless. Well, they can at least be honest, and so that the rest of the the Wakandans, the people, can know, what's actually happening. Because, for example, let me tell you, like, there's like this book called The Economic Hitman, right? And also from seeing the Epstein files, some of these talk about the African countries. So some of these leaders, presidents of countries, sometimes they can just, like, label them as being corrupt. And those leaders, they are not even getting any, they're not corrupt, they're not taking anything, but they would tank the economy of that nation to make the people disgruntled and turn them against the leader. It's written in the Economic Hitman, and some of the Epstein files collaborated that. This is why one thing that's good about Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traore, he rejected IMF code. They try to say, oh, we're giving you a gift. No, that gift is a loan. He turned those down, you see, which is good. But if that were like some of those other greedy, big belly leaders, they would totally accept it because it's for their own benefit. It's not towards the greater good. Okay. So this right here, these three leaders we've seen, and for example, people like to say, oh, Botswana is one of the powerhouses too. From what you've just heard from the man, their captain, the leader of Botswana, do you think they are a powerhouse? Some of the response, I mean, like, I'm sitting here watching this, I'm like, wow, these countries have a long way to go. I don't know if they would call it sovereign or not. This is why some people get mad at me when I say, oh, they need a white referee. People are like, how dare you say that? But you are hearing the leaders themselves. You're hearing them. And there's nothing wrong in acknowledging the truth. Zimbabwe, their leader, they just asked him about Venezuela. What did he say? Oh, it's far away. As if the distance means anything. Let me bring in Africa. Africa, welcome to the Afridamus Report.
Yes, Koto Anjara, man. Howdy, buddy?
Manjara, how you do?
No bad. What if I do? Howdy, family?
They're all well.
Yeah, thank God for that. Yeah, I mean, I only came late into your analysis, and I think most of it, that what I had from you, I think you got it spot on.
Yeah.
I mean, we hear a lot of African brothers and sisters living in the West, living a good life and sending money, like the remittance that we send back to Africa is probably contribute the highest to our GDP. And then we still benefit from this system. And also we pay taxes to them, and you know where the taxpayers' money go in the West, right? It goes to, social welfare, development, security, and so on. And that goes, goes globally. Okay, and also the multinational corporations, which you cannot do without, are everywhere.
Oh, and
but then we have,
you're from Sierra Leone. Maybe you missed
yes, brother.
the question they asked President Bio in
Yeah.
the beginning about Sierra Leone. The birth rate is high. They have lots of young people, right? So they asked him what he, does he keep track and what they are doing for them, right? So the answer he
Right.
gave, he said, oh, they provided, free education for them to secondary
Right.
level.
Right.
So I was like, okay, that's a good thing, but it also depends on the type of education. So
Right.
what do you think about that? Is he, are these, like, let's say, the smartest people, are they staying in the country?
Very good question, Afrodemus. I mean, yeah, he does. When he said he provide education, free, that's true.
Yeah.
And education in Sierra Leone is free, and also the university tuition is heavily subsidized. I think it's about $300. That's how
Okay.
cheap it is. Yeah, and but however, yeah, I think the Sierra Leone educational system, which you rightly point out, whether it's adequate and also if it's what is it doing to transform development. I mean, it's a bit early to know that because this system only came into place when he came to power. Okay, and that's when we start having this free education. But my own personal opinion, I think Sierra Leone should invest more in vocational training than academic training.
I did say that,
Oh, thank you, brother.
skills.
Thank you, brother. Because after the war, most of the people are building in Guinea today. The laborers, the builders, the plumbers, they're all coming from Guinea, and Sierra Leoneans, they all tend to go to university, want to be lawyers,
But see, that's interesting because
yeah.
okay, they're coming from Guinea, but the Sierra Leone people, they also move into Gambia and being builders over there. So so
Oh
it's
God.
wow, the sequence here
Maybe,
is very interesting.
yeah, maybe Shadalasi is a bit more stronger than Haliers nowadays.
Yeah.
So you can see why they're doing that. And also you have the birth rate. Maybe to be honest with you, I can see why the birth rate. I'm gonna joke, all right? Maybe you have to blame the Soninke, the Fuller, the Manding people. Their fertility rate is too high.
Uh,
No, just a joke, just a joke. I mean, we do have a high fertility rate. I think it's to do with the diets. Sierra Leone tend to have a very good ecosystem, and I think also they have polygamy marriages. That tend to produce more kids. The different factors. But yeah, I mean, I'm so glad you spot on today, bro. I don't know where I can disagree with you on the
and,
analysis
and,
based on
and
someone that been on the ground. Yeah.
yeah, and what do you think about Zimbabwe's leader's response about Maduro being snatched out of Venezuela?
Quite strange response. These are dictators, kind of trying to defend dictators. We all know that. And the only one that spoke well there, as you said, is I'm not going to be biased
Yeah,
because
no,
it's my
I mean,
president.
no, he
Yeah,
spoke, he
yeah.
gave a realistic answer.
Yeah, and he also criticized the West, where they think they are lagging bit of democracy, so and where they trying to preach to other people. Where he kind of sounded a bit alarmed to them, saying, "Look, I know you're coming to us, telling us, like, for example, what's going on in the AES, saying you guys, are dictators and stuff like that. You're violating human rights, but you are actually slowly crawling back there, and." Which sometimes that's a way to talk to people when you think they're not doing the right thing because you can dig deep go into their psyche, right? And he's a man who actually is I don't know if he still is, but he was actually only black country. In fact, Sierra Leone happened to be one of the few countries that have been a member of the United Nations Security Council over the years, and that's quite alarming. So he knows some of the stuff that he's talking about. So yeah,
What the UN is getting dismantled, you
I
know.
know, I know, I know, I know. It's
UN
it's heavily compromised.
Yeah, I'm gonna actually bring that program here as well because what does that mean for Africa's future? Because there are many nations that in Africa that receive quote unquote help, which
Okay,
I put quotes on it because um, for example, if you look at like places like Somalia, right? The question
right,
becomes: is Somalia being helped by the UN, or or they are pushing for them to not find peace? Because the people that you go to northern Nigeria, the places, where are they? Because you have like these UN programs, the people that go
right,
there, are they there to, because wherever they go, it seems like the fighting persists.
right.
Wherever they
Uh,
go,
uh,
it seems, because
yeah,
we've got a perfect example, like Somalia is a first-hand example. They've been there for 30 years. And the
And
fighting
Congo.
just keeps Congo, the fighting just keeps any area they control, the fighting just keeps going on and on and on. You know,
Yeah.
so like what are they doing in these
Right.
places? You know,
Right.
so
Yeah.
but those
Yeah.
African nations have a plan on how
Mm.
to navigate without, you know, the usual UN intervention. That should
Great
be
point.
the question.
That's a big question, Afrodemus, because we also know some of the NGOs were heavily involved in illegal activities in Africa. And, this money, is it going to the right places? Are they another form of secret societies, coming in and creating more havoc? Because
Yeah.
you're right, because they've been in Congo since, and Somalia since we all, know it, and the only place I thought they done something slightly different was in Sierra Leone, when in fact it wasn't, they did not base in Sierra Leone during the war. They have different offices surrounding because they don't want to get into the heat, and where they're helping people to migrate to America and Europe. But that's thanks to the West also, stretching their arm to Sierra Leone and Liberia, say, look, we're gonna help you out, we're gonna provide you homes, and because you're going through a tough time. Which what us Sierra Leoneans and Liberians, I'm sure majority, we still grateful for the West for providing those opportunities, for our people without any question. Because Sierra Leoneans that ran away from the war to Guinea, and when they went to Guinea, they did not even need a passport to go to America. All they need is to go to the Sierra Leone embassy, have a traveling certificate, like a piece of paper, photocopied, take it, and
Yeah,
basically
but
they get stamped. Hmm.
yeah, I get that. But you see, even like okay, the people that are migrating, that
Hmm.
to them they say, okay, that's good, right? But
Yes.
is there a nefarious reason behind it to destabilize the place and get the people out of there? You see what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like
Yes. And you did mention. Yeah.
you have to look at that as well. You see?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you did mention the brain drain, and I mean Sierra Leone. It was you know that you went to school probably in Sierra Leone, and some of your family members, where we had high level educated people even now as we speak, but most of these people went to the West and they never came back, and also our biggest nursing, we have one of the biggest nursing school where a lot of people go as soon as they get their certificates, they go straight to America or to the UK to work instead of helping staying in the continent or in Sierra Leone, helping the people. And also people that during the war, I don't know if you noticed, a lot of people from Sierra Leone are known to be people who have suffered, some kind of mental disorder like, PTSD
Yeah.
and so on.
So if you look at it,
Yeah,
right? For
yeah,
example,
mm,
because the people that are
mm,
running this, are
mm,
using,
yeah,
the people from war-torn places to change,
right.
Western countries. You see, that's what
Absolutely, absolutely,
they are doing that. So
right.
it might look like it's benevolent, but there is always a catch there. So,
That's
but
catch
let's bring
catch
yeah
22.
let's bring in
Okay,
Ola.
thanks.
Ola, welcome to the
Okay, thanks.
Afridamus report. It's been a while, Ola.
Yeah, thank you, Afrodamus.
How
Yeah, a
you
long
been?
time, bro. Happy New
Ha-
Year, man.
Happy New
Perfect.
Year to you
Good.
too.
Yeah.
Happy New Year, Ola. Mm.
Hey, I knew my brother. God bless, bro.
So, Ola,
Okay,
what do
thank
you
you.
think about the African, the leaders they are asking? You've heard the president of Zimbabwe, Botswana, and Sierra Leone. But let's start with the Zimbabwean president. What do you think about his last question they asked him um, about Venezuela and the answer he gave?
You see, the man that is sitting there, which is the head of state of Zimbabwe, right,
Right.
is not so different from Mugabe. These are the people that put Mugabe in power for very long time. You have to understand, he's a general in the army, you know,
Yes.
and 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 they fought for, I say fought, or there were more people that fought for the freedom of Zimbabwe, you know.
Right.
So his way of governing Zimbabwe is not different from the way Mugabe was doing.
Right.
Majority, heavy percentage for myself, few for his own people.
Mhm.
You understand me? And these leaders have no integrity. Forget about they put on a suit and and um, maybe try to show some kind of cleanness there. You tell me, Venezuela, okay, it's far. Actually, cannot really say much about the country because Usoki is interfering. But they're there for themselves. They're
Right.
there for their own process of investment for themselves and their family. It's not really for the country. You understand me? Because they know it's only in Africa that head of state know where the treasury cover is, where the money is coming from. Their hands is always in the pot of the country. Other
So
countries like
do you think then it's fair to say China is their new daddy?
uh, I think China is even getting tired of them even.
Really?
Yes,
How so?
because look, when you invest in a place, right, you borrow money, but the people have to pay you back. Maybe take them time to pay you back. But you that is borrowing the money, you're not actually seeing development, from them. It's like you helping somebody, right?
Mhm.
Then, but helping that person, you want to see progress. You hear? No, you want to see his progress. What is he? If it's progressive or not. If it's progressive, you'll be very, very happy, right? But the same thing also go with China and them. China is investing in them, but China is not really seeing the progress. Everything is to borrow. Everything is to borrow. You have to understand. Kenya was like that also. By a guy called I forget the last one before this guy Ruto.
Before what's his name? Before Ruto, it was
Kenyatta or something
Uhuru.
like that.
Uhuru.
Uhuru,
Uhuru.
Uhuru Kenyatta.
Yeah.
He see the way he was running to China, making China look like if China is the new Western replacement. He was smiling, he was shaking hands until when China said no, you see the way they turn again to the Western people, start licking
But
their ass, sending.
Ola, see, they do you think Manangagwa, when in the beginning they were asking him about are they getting better deal with China compared to the West? He didn't. He was, shuffling, he tap dancing. He
Yes,
didn't want to
yeah,
answer. Why do you think
yeah,
he didn't want to answer straight?
because you don't want to shut the door for the other side in case China is tired of them. See, this is politics.
So do
This is
you
pure
think?
politics.
But I thought he was supposed to be against the West. He shouldn't hesitate to speak about the white people the way he wants to.
There are some white countries still wetting his hand behind the scene. So he's not going to talk bad about them. It's getting money on both sides. Well, like there's big money that's coming, from one side, the Chinese, but the Chinese also ripping them off also. You see, China, China men, they are very good in business, but China doesn't know what called environmental control or how to, if like, most Africans cannot tell them, please don't pollute my area, do this,
So
because
then, Ola,
Africans,
these countries are not sovereign then.
not because it's being controlled by one man. Their parliament is not really working. Most Africans' parliament are dead parliament. Parliament. These are dead ones. They're ghosts. There's nothing there. They all just agree because they're going to share the money later. The money is in the country now. They settle the Senate. They settle the House of Representatives. The president takes his own, gives more to the vice president. That's how they share the money. So nobody is actually involved. Or let's say, okay, this is my country. Or just think about how can I go and invest in somewhere, to the company. Or I have to buy 5 mansions in London so that they can hide the
But
money there.
Ola, are you shocked that they invited these leaders up there and they didn't invite the giant of Africa themselves, Tinubu? and the South Africans on stage?
Because this look, invited Tinubu. What's Tinubu going to say there? Can't say anything. I'm hardly speak even.
You know, they have the U.S. Army just landed in Nigeria.
Yeah, because
I for them, but you want Tinubu to come fall down there again.
because look, Tinubu is a weak government. It's very, very weak. You know, it's not as strong. You know, Buhari is a very strong. Forget about his head. He might not know much about the economy or anything, but what he know, he will reject because he will reject American landing in Nigeria. So when they see, because they don't have anything, they don't have anything against him.
But Ola, now that the American army landed, and on Christmas they, you know, did some sampling bombing. So now, do you think said Gumi and the one other guy that said they are going to fight? What's his name again? The one. Do you think, you know, said Gumi and his people are preparing to go to war?
No. What happened?
Is it not been arrested? I don't know. I don't know if it's fake news.
I don't think nobody will. I don't think he will be arrested. Let me tell you something, right?
Okay.
The Northern people that gave Tinubu power, right? Tinubu betrayed them.
Right.
America is not going to survive him. You understand me?
So, Ola, do you think Tinubu made a deal secretly to bring?
Yeah, he was scared. He thought Trump going to take him out because he have no support in Nigeria. Look, if you know the politics of the Northerners, right? They can be very honest, right? They gave him the power, but what did he do? He put all his Lagos boys there, and forget about the ones that brought him to power. And because he's so very corrupt, he know the Americans can use anything against him. He can almost be like Venezuela also.
Oh,
because
yeah,
they can, because Donald Trump can bring his past and come and, you know, hold him with it. You understand me? Money is being laundering everywhere. You understand me? That's what Obuari, see, Obuari don't have bank account anywhere. you cannot find this is Buhari money. That doesn't mean people that surround him are not corrupt, but him personally, you cannot hold his neck and say, "Oh, I hold you and I come and be begging for back, please, please, please." That's what the man does not know, and he does not say, "Please," because he have nothing. He have nothing in no other Western countries.
But Ola, do you know it's on the table that Nigeria, one of the plans, they're going to divide it into 3 states. Israel is interested in partnering with, one of them. Like they're going to divide it, into 3 states. That's the plan.
I've heard it was in a long time. Sorry, Ola. In the long time, I think they should divide it. I think, to be honest with you, it's about time they divide the place.
But I don't think it will be possible. But I don't know about the long run, because look, they tried before that led to civil war. Biafra.
Yeah, but Biafra, right?
Let me tell you about Biafra. It's Biafra that is pushing this thing. They're not gonna, the other ones are not pushing for let them break from each other. Biafra. Who's Biafra want to occupy Port Harcourt? Biafra want to occupy my area. Look, I have nothing to do with Biafra. You understand me? I'm not in the same culture with them. I don't believe what they believe on. So how can you form a Biafra in just 5 states? Almost like landlocked. Even those 5 states, their people are not even staying. They're making money outside those states. You understand me? Your citizens are in Lagos, are in Abuja, are everywhere in the southwest. They're in the north making money. So when you hear about Biafra, these are just few people, not majority of them.
Ola. The states, the way they want to divide them, and now Israel is coming in too, they're going to be helping them, and they can find themselves new daddies and, finally become their own country. Like, nobody
want to leave Look, Igbo land is just 5 states. South, some part of South don't want nothing to do with them. If they can stay in their five, if they say they want independence, let them leave the whole state and go back to home.
Yeah, but Ola,
Yeah.
why? What kind of deal do you think Tinubu did for American troops to come in? And still, Tinubu did
He was
not talk
scared.
about the bombing.
You know,
He didn't talk about the bombing.
No, they threaten him. They threaten him. They threaten him. Look, this guy is very weak. You understand me?
It's true.
He's very, very weak. And the people that brought him to power, that gave him that power, he shift them out. You can't do something like that. That you think your Lagos boys, your Lagos criminal boys that went to America, they're looking for them. Look, the majority of his cabinet, they are looking for them in the States. They're criminals.
No, I forget what Ola is spot on. Ola is spot on, and also Tinubu right now. The only reason why he's actually there is because of the defense minister, who is a Northerner, who saved him from that coup. Yeah. Because what happened is Tinubu trying to get rid of it. Basically, the only place he can't touch is the Nigerian military, because the Nigerian military is heavily occupied.
Look, if that overthrowment was it was not. Most people believe it's fake. You understand me? Who to overthrow? If they didn't want to overthrow you, he's not a strong man.
Ola, China.
He's giving them money. Is he giving them money? Yeah.
China condemned that why the U.S. did bombing in Nigeria. But I found a documentary, like secret videos. The Chinese are flying in some of these occupied, areas that they say Boko Haram and others have. They are taking out Zamfara State. They are taking out, gold and other stuff out of Nigeria. So I'm surprised they didn't bring Nigeria to this meeting. Why didn't Nigeria show up with these other presidents?
After that must look. Now the Northerners are supporting somebody like Peter Obi, right? In a way, behind some of them publicly, because he told them 4 years, which it will be 4 years. There's some of them secretly. Some of them, they're even in his cabinet, pretending they are with him. You let the next election come. People are not smiling. Man, there's suffering, no. Buhari said something, say, when I'm going, you people will miss me. This man you're seeing, Buhari actually did not want him. Buhari didn't want this man. Buhari rejected him from the back.
Did he wanted Lawan and Osibanjo, the Christian guy?
He wanted Lawan or Osibanjo, but there are some people in his inner circle that say, "Oh, let's give him this power." He promised them a lot, but he dumped them later. If those people are honest to you, why were you not honest to them? That's why he's ruling Nigeria in a very shaking ground. He's not too strong. He's not that powerful. You understand? It's not that powerful. Everything's being bribed. You bribe bandits, you bribe this, you bribe this. Everything's being bribed.
Ola, now that the U.S. troops are down there, how is China's relationship going to be with Nigeria?
America can be there. No matter if that's when he have to be very, very careful, because they will protest. If he try to ring the election, they will protest heavily. That will be his end. You understand me? Don't be careful what you look. The Northerners, they're not going to shake. America is there. America is not there. Those people, once the minute they put their head in, it's with South that are scared of. It's with South that are scared of death. The Northern people are not scared of death. You understand? I'll just tell you the truth. Once the minute they put their head in, you understand me? They're there. Their head is in. You understand? That for them, because of their religion, is just normal. You understand me? It's with South that a little bit, running inside the house. You understand me? But they don't care. Their population is large. You understand? Only that some of their leaders failed them, but now they are very, very angry. They're very angry. Only that in
Ola,
other people don't talk too much.
Ola, what do you think about the responses from the president of Botswana and Sierra Leone? Right?
I don't know much about these guys, Sierra Leone. I don't know much about him at all. I don't even know much about Sierra Leone. What I know about when they were having some skirmishes, I think they settled them. I know we're friendly. We are like sisters country because we share the same network of TV. I don't know much about the economy, even the guy that is ruling. So I can't really say much, but I think Botswana is lately they're not doing well like that.
I
I don't
know
know why.
because the lab made diamonds ever since that was introduced. So now it's making the natural diamond obsolete. Like people are
Yeah,
so that's the thing I'm saying. Like because
yeah.
it's
Because of
like
that,
when
they start.
Africans say, oh, they need our natural resources, but white Western people can find an alternative. Like with diamond now, lab made diamond is more common in the market than diamond from the ground. So Botswana has a lot of
Yeah,
it, but
yeah.
they are
Because
not
of that,
doing well
i-
anymore.
i- if, if Botswana was a very close country. They don't want you to be in. They don't want foreigners. They will deport you. But
Well, now
now
they
they
are
start.
selling citizenship.
Now they want to open up in a way to have investment. But before it was not really like that. So I think lately they're not doing well. I think they organized the team very, very well when they were having those money coming in from the diamond. Their traditional rulers who were part of the government. So there was nothing like, I think you can see this guy that is in power now, is everywhere, looking for investment, looking for money. I think it's a shame that Africans are not sitting among themselves to discuss how can they invest in their own territory, exchange of investment, so that they can do pretty well for themselves. There's nobody coming to invest in you when you don't have what called power to
See, Ola,
negotiate.
that's my point. That what I'm sure some wouldn't get it. I'm saying is China Africa's new daddy? Because you notice the questions that have been asked is okay. Pretty much in let me translate in many words. Or Tucker Carlson is saying you moved away from us. You remove us as your daddies. Now you're with the Chinese. Tell us what kind of deals you are getting with the Chinese. That's pretty much what it is.
Because if you don't have power, because you have nothing to offer, you are the one begging, and you're almost on your knee. So he can give you and get whatever times 10 of what he want to take away from you. And those are the raw materials. You understand me? Look at Ghana. You see what the Chinese are doing to Ghana, gold and everything. Forget about what they say. Oh, we
So
arrest this, we arrest that.
how is
They're picking
yeah? Is the Chinese are they conquering Ghana too?
man, they polluted their water. Some of them by the government, some of them by the chiefs. Polluted their water like crazy. Drinking water, fresh water. I'm talking about inner water,
So
inner rivers.
Ola, like they have the Americans in military in Ghana too. What do you make of that? In fact, they're saying the ship that came did the bombing into Nigeria. Those people flew from Ghana.
Yes,
What do you?
they're there. They're there in
So, but
Ghana because
Ola, now they're in Ghana, they're in Nigeria. What is going on?
because these are two broke countries that have one is very corrupt country, the other one is also very corrupt but pretending. You understand me? You see, that's why most of them are trying to offer citizenship to what
No,
you
but
call so that
Ghana say no
diaspora.
more no more citizenship to the blacks.
No, because there are people, the ordinary Ghanaian protest again. I'm happy Sierra Leone also stop it. You know what I mean? Because they want to use this money. They're asking for money for it. You see, they cannot borrow it, or they want to consume this money as part of citizenship to diaspora, which is part of corruption. I check all these leaders that are doing these things. They have tenderness of heavily corrupt people. You understand me? Is it Ghana one that's a co-founder that left? Very corrupt. You understand me? The Benin
But
Republic man that is there.
I saw in Ghana they arrested some Chinese and put them in handcuffs.
Yeah, the
Yeah, I saw that
citizenship.
too.
You cannot be giving out your citizen your passport without not actually know who are you giving in these things with. People that okay, you can give them some maybe free visa to come to check if they can stay. You know, but you have to look at them. Who are these people also? Are they genuine? What can they do? What can they offer your
But
country?
hola,
You understand me?
okay, then for example, like Botswana, they are selling citizenship, right? There's no
Mhm.
restriction. Like anyone can buy Chinese,
Mhm.
Japanese, white people, anybody, right? So speaking of which, like, and Botswana, I mean, they have a lot of infrastructure in place. So do like, do you think this is eventually like these countries, are gonna
Botswana is
go
not.
back to under other foreign powers?
Botswana will not give anybody any citizenship to anybody. See what they
No, they
try
are
to do,
selling
right?
it. They are selling
They,
it
they're
though.
selling it. They're selling it. They're selling it to people so that they can come again and bring back that stone back they want to knock the lab one out, right? So let's assume Chinese are coming, right? Who are Botswana citizens. Let's say the Japanese. Let's say some Americans, right? These are high class people. So what these people they
Yeah.
will tell them, bring us investment. Let's revive these stone ones back again. These are the real original ones. The lab one, you cannot compare it with this natural one. The lab one might fade maybe after 20 years, 30 years, but this one will remain the way it is. So they're looking to bring back, to bring that the greatness back again. It's a game, and that game and that's what they're playing now. You understand? That's what they're just playing now because they need that investment. They need that money to be coming. You know. So kiddie lab ones come to the real natural stone one, which actually the stone one will last more longer than the one they create in the lab. You never know. Let's see how long that one lasts. Also,
Yeah,
that's what
yeah,
the
and
truth.
also, and also after them was
Go on.
the Botswana. Yeah, sorry, thank you. Also, Botswana, they are part of the bears, okay? Because you know too well after them. My
Mhm.
family, I'm part of your family, were involved in this stuff in Kono and so on. We come from that town, but the
Now,
bears.
don't get the blacks to start accusing me now.
They're gonna come after that gold, after they was. But yeah, the Bears, Botswana for years they've been crying to be part of the Bears. If I'm not mistaken, okay, and because the Bears control most of the diamond in the world, and one of my cousins used to work for Diamond Corporation, which is a branch of the Bears, and now, the country who are the members of the bears are very developed and highly. These people are very developed, and the income is actually great. And out of all the countries that have diamond in Africa, it's only that guy that's sitting there complaining. Is his
But
country that have linked to the bears, which is a Western company, okay, which is Western, Diamond Corporation. So, and then, in fact, going back, the former king or chief in Botswana have to come to the royal family to UK to beg to say, please allow us in this club. So, any diamond that's sold in the world today, Botswana have something like 2%. Okay, and that money is been used to develop that country. In fact, Botswana, if I'm not mistaken, is probably one of the most developed country in the continent because of that income. It's been really good. It
well,
provides
they
roads,
also
clean.
they export beef, and other stuff.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. So that give them that income from the diamond, give them the leverage to pay the bills, and develop the country, and also like as you said, the agricultural, aspect of it. That also increased their income. So compared to Sierra Leone, who are not part of the bears, and Sierra Leone is a high percentage of diamond exports also in the world. Look at where we end up in. There's no control. There's mass scale of corruption. People came in like the Lebanese came into Sierra Leone and exploit the country. The Chinese and so on. So what we need to do, we need to I don't know, these countries they need to get out their emotions and look at where the money is at. where they can actually find more income for their people and develop their people. And we need to actually stop this east, west, south, north thing, and look at where the money is coming from, and we stay to that. That's
So,
my
so,
opinion.
so,
And
so,
yeah,
so, in many words,
yeah,
these countries, African countries, would always need a outside daddy, right?
yeah, 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 pretty much.
Uh,
Because they cannot fix their own house in order. They can't get their house in order. And also, Ola, you said one thing. I actually agree with you because I was in the UK when the late President Buhari came, because I thought he was one of the corrupt presidents himself. And now we know the UK intelligence doesn't play. Okay, and when the Queen died in the UK, when they lost the Queen in the UK, and he did not came for the funeral. He sent the Vice President Osibanjo. He came like a month after. He personally met the king, the current king of England, King Charles, because King Charles and Buhari, they were best friends when they were young. Okay, so I saw King Charles ask him. They're like buddies. You can see the energy between them. Sat very close to each other. He said, "Oh, I heard and I realized you do not have any property in the UK. Why that is?" But I said, no, I'm not interested. I only got one house there and this and that. And everything that he said was just 100% spot on. And when he was building that, helping Dangote building that oil refinery, which I think is one of the largest oil refineries in the world, all these liberals were actually crying their teeth, oh, how Africa is building a refinery, global warming, and all this problem. There's nothing that I haven't done to stop that refinery build. He did not listen to none of them. He closed his ears. In fact, that David Adeyo, or whatever Nigerian guy, he actually wrote about that also, how he was bribed by these liberals to actually write nonsense about the refinery to sabotage it. He refused. Okay, and today the only thing that Nigeria have going for them is that oil refinery. Okay, and we need to select our leaders wisely, and we need to. Obviously, he wasn't a good president because he's a guy that suffered the PTSD in the Chad War, and then he left. He was forced to come. He was actually Buhari. It's Tinubu that made Buhari come to power by force, not physically, but he begged him to come. So Buhari would stay in power. When Buhari stayed, then he will come after Buhari because, as he knows, that's the only way he could do it. In fact, Tinubu that you see today spent over 20 years in the northern Nigeria, licking the ass to get to power. You see, because that's the only way he could get to power. And so, and I believe he is a Western. If America have said is one of their interests, he's an CIA agent. He worked for them. Okay, and don't be surprised. All this thing that's going on in Nigeria now is he's been used against the AES in the Sahel. Because if
well,
they were to,
well,
yeah,
well,
mm,
well. From the interview, the people we saw, now we know who,
mm,
the Chinese are their daddy and the Arabs, and who are the
100%.
Americans are their daddy. So
And you're right. And also the Chinese were taking flight. There's a lot of flights that been people saw a lot of planes taking off in Zamfara. Where the lot of this killing started. Okay, and a lot of this some of these people in the north colliding the Nigerian government because the Minister of Mineral Resources is a guy from the south, colliding with these Chinese and these rogue elements like the United Arab Emirates and one other country to actually mine that area. And so lithium, gold, all these critical minerals are behind it. But the Chinese have been exploiting that area for too long. And yes, and that's why America is probably looking at it thinking, okay, if you're letting these guys, come to that area and underdevelop the area, extracting the minerals and also using it against us, we're going to find it as a threat to national security. And I think
and
that's
and,
something down the line also. Yeah.
and
interesting.
that would be look, you cannot offer people what you know you cannot control, right? Tinubu cannot control
Right,
what is
right.
going on in Japan.
No, he
There are too many
can't.
cabals that look. Ubwari. I know Ubwari when he came as a military head of state. Ubwari
Right.
didn't really change, right? Only that Ubwari is a nationalist. As you look at Ubwari like that, Ubwari does not believe no more than Nigeria. You understand me?
True.
Actually, when he retired, he went to, I don't know if it's a room and parlor. If you look at the house, you'll be looking, okay, this don't compared to what Nigeria head of state where they live. They live like on a big, huge estate,
Yeah.
huge one. But this guy lives in a corner somewhere, just room. He will come out of that room. That is a sitting room. They're not very small one, and that's where they bury him. They say not so big compound like that. That's what they put. He's more talking about this.
So he's not rich like the president of Zimbabwe.
No. This guy just look. He bought drop money for them to clean up Ogoni. Oh yeah, he dropped the money. The people that in power now, the Senate president, they all. Then it was like ending this from. They took that money. You understand? Ubari did some certain things. Ubari didn't really change. That's what he is. He believe in his religion. He play fair. A lot of people make money on his head without him not knowing, because he just thought he's a soldier man. Okay, we do this. Okay, let's do this. We do this. Okay, let's do this. He's not a rich man. Buhari is not a rich man.
Well, Mnangagwa was a soldier too, right?
Yeah, yeah, but these are bunch of corrupt people. But Buhari does not believe. I think it's a guy who, okay, look at him in London. He did stay in his private house. Where did he stay? Embassy house, the ambassador house, with what they call the Nigeria house. That's where he was staying. He have no. I think he does not believe money can make you happy.
Right. So, guys, let's do our closing statements. I'm planning on I gotta run some stuff, but I want to see if I can come later.
After that, we need to boom. This is your channel. We need to take it to the next level.
Yes.
Again, I think Africans, right? We need to do more better. We need to invest in ourselves, exchange investment.
Right.
We cannot be going to everywhere, sitting down like kids in kindergarten begging for cookies to eat. Otherwise, they look at UAE. What is the population of UAE? Let's just be honest. Small. It's because they invest their money where. That's why they are like that. That's why they all run into that place. Some of Nigerians are going to there to buy houses and stay there. And person like Dino Belai was also, hanging around there. We need to do more for ourselves. We need to invest. Let's make this investment to everybody. West African people need to do it. If they can shoot Nollywood. Nollywood is not made of Nigerian actors alone or actors. It's because they speak the language or the Nigerian English. Most people thought, Nollywood is just purely Nigeria. These are Nigerians. It's just lie. Some of them are Liberians. A lot of them are Liberians. The other ones are Sierra Leoneans. The other ones are Ghana. They're Nigerians. I was even shocked. A Botswana girl was also playing in Nollywood way back. If those ones can do it, why we cannot invest in ourselves? Let us change businesses together. Then we will not be beggars. If we have oil, ship it to the other side. Let others supply you agriculture, food stuff to sustain. Because we all eat similar food anyway. The same type of food. I think we'll do more better. That's Afro Diamonds. God bless, man.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
You too. We'll see you again. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, Ola is right. I know if I know it, I don't know if you know that. Idris Alba, who is half Sierra Leone and half Ghanaian, is heavily behind Nollywood, and he was heavily behind the modern day Afrobeat. And even Fela, that you heard about, he was in Sierra Leone. That's where he did a lot of these Afrobeat things. That's how he started it. But yeah, I mean, in the continent, we need to stop choosing side. We need to stop looking for new daddies until we fix our own home. Nobody's going to respect you. As a family man, if your kids does not respect you, who else is going to respect you after them? Nobody, right?
Right.
That's what I got to say. I mean, it's been a great show. So yeah, thank you very much. You have a lovely day, sir. Thank you.
You too. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of the show. Feel free to leave your comments. As you guys can see, those of you that are coming in or you came later, go back and listen to the interview and some of my takes on it. So from what I've gathered, especially with the old president, his mindset having changed, to help cater to the, changes in the globe. The Botswana president, I think he's just saying stuff just to say it. So in a way, I don't want to do this, but those three presidents up there, here's what they would do.
I can do some shuffling too. Look out, man, what you gonna do? Look out, boys, it's coming through. Yeah, man, yeah, man. Boy, he got educated feet.
Yeah, so all three of them exhibited, having educated feet up there, and you guys saw it. So I'll see you guys on the next one. Get the likes up and share the video, the stream here. I will see you guys on the next one. All right, and I'm out.
Lend thy ears to the Afridamers. Pay attention to the Afridamers. The true Soninke warrior. Natural is his intelligence. As a true professor. Solution to brainwash diseases. Sit back, relax, and hear the wisdom. Afridamers will heal your minds. Sit back, reflect, you'll find no objection. Afridamers will clear your doubts here. Always log on to the Afridamers. Lend thy ears to the Afridamers. Is the truth and no doubt the Soninke warrior.